Hi, it's Tarrant.
And Stella from Meeple University on the Dice Tower.
Today we'll be teaching you how to play Space Invaders, game designed by Kane Klenko and published by Buffalo Games. Hopefully after watching this video you'll be ready to play the game.
Let's get to the table.
Based on the classic arcade game, Space Invaders is a cooperative dexterity game in which players are attempting to protect the Earth from the invading hordes of aliens and the mothership UFO. Players will use this catapult to launch their blast tokens at the invaders, attempting to knock them out of the sky before they can invade the Earth and cause damage. If the players can destroy all of the invaders and the UFO before the Earth runs out of health, then they will win the game. To set up the game, place the board on the side which corresponds to your player count. Place the catapult piece below the red and white stripe at the bottom of the board, and assemble and place the open top UFO piece at the top of the board. Each player chooses a colour and takes its 7 blast tokens, as well as a random level 1, 2 and 3 power card. Place one level 1 blast token on the level 1 card, and place both of the level 2 tokens and both of the level 3 tokens on their cards. To start the game, you'll only have these 2 tokens to blast at the invaders, but you'll gain these other 5 progressively through the game. Now, choose your player count and your difficulty, and there are 4 different difficulty levels. These choices will impact some of the rest of the specifics for your setup. You will shuffle up the entire invaders deck, and then take a number of those cards into a face-down stack corresponding to your player count and difficulty. Any leftover invaders which aren't part of this deck are returned to the box. Then you will check these 2 tables to determine the starting health of the planet based on your difficulty, and this is marked on the board with a white marker, and the starting health of the UFO from this table based on your difficulty and player count, and you'll mark this with the red marker. From your deck of invader cards, deal out the first 10 cards into the top 2 rows of the board. Then place the other cardboard components nearby ready for use, including the scoreboard, the armory, and the blast wave token, which is used for measurement in the game. Choose an initial first player who takes the turn token, and you're ready to play. Space Invaders is played in rounds, and each round is played in 4 phases. The launch attack phase, the resolve attack phase, the invader phase, and finally the cleanup phase. Each player will individually complete their own launch attack and resolve attack phases in player order, and then once all players have completed those phases for the round, there will be a single invader phase and a single cleanup phase. So now let's look at each of these phases in detail. When it is your turn to launch an attack, you'll take all of the blast tokens which you have unlocked, that is the ones not still on cards. Then, one by one, the player will use the catapult to launch those tokens towards the invaders. You may reposition the catapult however you like across the bottom of the board, and may angle it in whichever direction you wish, but it may not be on top of or over this red and white stripe. When you launch, if the token lands entirely on the planet, which is anywhere below the top of this dotted section that you can see in the atmosphere, then you may shoot again, up to a maximum of 3 times. This, for example, would not be reshot because it is slightly outside the atmosphere. After the 3rd shot with a token, or the first time it lands partially out of the atmosphere, then you must leave it where it lands. While a player is launching blast tokens, you'll leave every token, as well as any cards that get knocked slightly out of place, exactly where they lie. Only once the player has finished launching tokens will you go to the top of the board and resolve all of these hits. An invader is hit if it has any blast token, either entirely or partially lying on top of the card. A case like this, where the token is resting next to the edge of the card but not on top of it, does not count as a hit. It is possible to hit 2 invaders with a single blast token, and this is a very efficient way to try to play the game. So when you resolve, you'll take any basic invaders that suffered at least 1 hit, and remove them from the main board, putting them into their appropriately coloured slots on the scoreboard to count towards your final score. There are two types of invaders who have special protections against your blast: the double hit invaders and the shield invaders. A double hit invader requires 2 hits to kill, and so if you land 2 blasts on a double hit invader, you will successfully remove it. If you land only 1, then you won't kill it immediately, but you can place your blast token in the very centre of the card. This tells you that 1 hit has been lost, and that future players can take the second hit. The shield invader, on the other hand, protects the 4 orthogonally adjacent invaders from being killed, although not from being hit. So in this case here, this shield-bearing invader is killed by this blast and is removed from the board, and therefore this invader is no longer shielded, and so this blast kills this invader. However, over here, this invader has been hit but is shielded by this invader, and to indicate this, you place the blast token again in the centre of the card to indicate that it's been hit but not yet killed. Later in the round, when you're resolving another player's blast tokens, you can now complete these attacks. Any new hit on a 2-hit invader is added to the existing ones, so this would kill this invader. And any hit which takes out a shielded invader now allows you to also take out any previously shielded invaders which had already been hit. Note as well that shielded invaders that are next to each other do not shield each other. The other type of successful hit is one which lands inside the UFO. Landing on top of it does not count. For each such hit, reduce the UFO's health tracker 1 step. After a player has finished resolving, all of their tokens are removed from the board and placed into their slot of the armory, except for any which are marking a hit on a shielded invader or a double hit invader. Play then passes to the attack phase of the next player on the left. Once all 4 players have had their launch and resolve attack phases, then the player's chance to attack is over. Any blast tokens that are still sitting on double hit invaders or shielded invaders are now removed from the board as well and placed in the armory. You only get until the end of the round to finish off one of those attacks. Now it's time for the invaders to advance. If there are any invader cards which were knocked out of alignment during the launch phases, return those to their proper spaces, and then you will advance the invaders. Starting from the rightmost column and going to the left, you will resolve each of these columns one at a time. And to resolve a column, starting with the invader at the bottom and moving towards the top, you'll move each invader a number of spaces forward based on this arrow. The single arrow advances by 1 step. The double arrow advances 2 steps and will push forward any invaders in its way. And an invader with the 4 arrows advances as far forward as it can, including invading into the planet, but will not push any invaders forward. So resolving each of these examples as we see here, this column, the invader moves 1 step forward and 1 step forward. Here, this invader would move 2 forward and this would move 1. Here, this invader advances into the planet, giving clear space for this invader to advance all the way to the planet, while this one moves 2 forward. And over here, this one advances 1 step, this one advances 2, pushing this one into the planet, and this one advances to here. Now resolve damage to the planet. Each invader that reached the planet deals damage based on this number at the bottom of the card, so here there would be a total of 9 damage dealt to the planet. This is marked by moving the white marker down its track on the board. Each time the white marker enters or passes one of these blast spaces while you're taking damage, the players all get an upgrade. Take the next lowest numbered blast token that you have on a card and add it to the armory. As the planet suffers more damage, you'll have more and more blast tokens to fire at the invaders. Now take all of the invader cards that broke through and shuffle those cards back into the base invader deck. You're going to have to face those invaders again. Finally, you'll proceed to the cleanup phase. All players will take back their blast tokens from the armory, ready to shoot again next round, and the first player token will be handed one player to the left. Then refill the top 2 rows of the board to have a new wave of invaders. You'll start on the top row going from right to left and then continue until either the top 2 rows are full or until you've run out of invaders. The new round then begins. Each player will have 3 unique player powers which will apply to their blast tokens specifically. Here, for example, the red player's level 1 blast tokens, if they hit the UFO, will count as damage and can then be re-shot, making these very useful for launching early attacks against the UFO. Some card effects allow you to move the blast tokens after they've landed, and this would be according to either the short blast wave or the long blast wave. Here, for example, allowing you to move up to the length of the long blast wave. We won't take you through all of the different abilities in this video, and we'll leave you to check them in the rulebook. To win the game, you have to defeat all of the invaders and the UFO. However, once you begin a round with only 6 or fewer invaders left in space and none left in the draw deck, the pace at which you have to finish the game escalates. The round in which this happens is known as the last round before the final assault. You will attack the invaders as usual in this round, attempting to kill as many of them as possible. However, the way you resolve the invaders' advance step is different. Now every invader will go all the way to the planet as if they had this icon, and they will do double damage to the planet. So these 3 invaders between them would do 8 damage to the planet. If you survive this last attack by the invaders, you don't get reinforcements, even if you pass some of these blast icons. However, on the positive side, these invaders that crashed into the planet have been killed and don't get shuffled back into a draw deck. Now it's time for the final assault. The final assault is one final round for the players to attempt to kill the UFO. Each player gets a full set of turns as usual, but the player power cards do not work during the final assault. If the players can destroy the UFO, and they've destroyed all of the invaders already, then the players win the game. If they can't finish off the UFO during the final assault round, then the UFO immediately destroys the planet and the players lose. Note as well that players can destroy the UFO before the final assault, and if this happens, the UFO is simply removed from play. The players still need to destroy all of the invaders as well in order to win the game. Finally, whether you win or lose, you can count up your score on the back of the scoreboard to track your progress from game to game. You'll score 10 points for killing a pink invader, 20 for a blue invader and 30 for a green invader, 20 points for each hit you put on the UFO, 10 for each hit on a double hit or a shielded invader at the time that you lost the game, 10 points for each health remaining, and 100 points if you win. You'll also add 50 points on the expert difficulty or 100 on elite.
And that's how to play Space Invaders. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you enjoyed this video, please help us by hitting that like button and subscribe to the Dice Tower if you haven't already done so.
And if you have any questions, comments or feedback, please leave them in the comment section below.
See you next time.